Yes, I saw Rufai today of Arise TV, pouring his mind out. Usually, one thing I like about Rufai is that he doesn't, follow these people that does this kind of abracadabra while presenting his interview as usual. Rufai talks straight, he goes straight to the point, and I believe that they must have been approaching him to bend things, but looking at him, that he's a disciplined person. He said something today. Why can't an Igbo man become the president of Nigeria?
Why can't an Igbo man become president? Yoruba man, Hausa man, Ijaw man has become president. Why can't an Igbo man become president? At least in this country, after the Civil War, there was a consensus of some sort by the two political parties. And Igbo men were both running mates in the 79 elections. Why can't we go one step further?
That is a very big and crucial question. The other day, somebody told me, if you check my, post yesterday or 2 days ago, he said that I am too tribalistic. I did not, talk too much. I only asked him, did Nigeria not approve Southwest to bring president in 1999? Was it not a general consensus in 1999 to zone presidency to the Southwest? The person did not answer again. Of course, I saw his name. He's a Yoruba person. He never answered again. When you tell these people the truth, I don't know whether they are afraid of Igbos. That division you people are running from, one day, it will come. If things continue like this, it will come. Because people are tired of what is happening in this country. If you talk about, people that are grounded in economics, is the Igbos. Is the Igbo man that is well grounded when it comes to economics, making money, making things better. There is no two ways about it. You cannot take it from an Igbo man. You see? So Rufai is angry today saying that why can't an Igbo man become the president of Nigeria? That is a simple fact. Well, let's watch this.
Where activists of Moyele Sowore joined a mass protest in Aba dubbed the 1 Million Man March as demonstrators took to the streets demanding the unconditional release of detained IPOP leader Nnamdi Kanu. Addressing a large and enthusiastic crowd on Wednesday, Sowore called on President Tinubu to free Nnamdi Kanu, arguing that his continued detention is political persecution for refusing to abandon the Biafran self-determination struggle. He also criticized the heavy military presence in Aba, asking why those same soldiers could not be deployed to Zamfara to tackle terrorism. Let's take a look.
I'm also a friend and lover of justice. And I came here today against all odds to come and ask that Tinubu must free Nnamdi Kanu. Tinubu has no option to free Nnamdi Kanu. We warned them when they got Justice Omotosho to send Nnamdi Kanu to jail that he can never stand. And they have now understood, but they have not learned their lessons yet. We are not here to make long speeches. I came here to identify with all of you in Aba and all over Nigeria and all over the world. That until Oyen will come home, we are not stopping.
We're talking about Moyele's red carpet for chiefs. But Rufai, Nnamdi Kanu has been in detention since 2021, and the calls for his release have never stopped, from courtrooms to street protests. The solution, many believe, is not legal. It is political. President Tinubu has the power to initiate dialogue, to pursue a resolution. But will he do so? Those are the questions, and I don't know the effect of this 1 million man march. at this moment, Rufai?
I'll just spot on the analysis of what people are saying. The solution is largely political. So there is one part of the permutation, and please, it's a permutation. It's an opinion by some people. It's not based on any facts. It's not empirical. That President Tinubu might try to use this Kanu case, to play a political game leading up to the election, which might be his final strategy leading up to the elections. It's not based on facts. It's an opinion. Some people have even said, hopefully, that maybe we release him close to the election. Because when you look at it, see, in as much as we condemn the methods at which it was done, let us not forget the fact that there is marginalization against the Igbos, yes, against other ethnic groups in this country, but there's high marginalization against the Igbos. I mean, take for instance, I think we make this argument when we're there. Since we've returned to democracy, why can't an Igbo man become president? Yoruba man, Hausa man, Ijo man has become president. Why can't an Igbo man become president? At least in this country, after the Civil War, there was a consensus of some sort by the two political parties. And Igbo men were both running mates in the 79 elections. Why can't we go one step further? That's just the question. I know some people will argue and say, oh, competence should not be based on zoning and all of that. I get the argument. But are you telling me that there is no Igbo man that is competent enough to be president?
All right. I
mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a consensus that the reason why we had two Yoruba men on the ballots in 1998-1999 elections was a way to compensate the Yoruba people for what had happened to MKO Abiola. Can we also be intentional? Because I feel to a large extent, even if it's just one term or two terms, an Igbo person, becomes president in this country. And I must have to add, power is not served a la carte. The person must work for it. It will shift a lot of the narrative. I mean, when people say, oh, we have been marginalized and all of that, we can now say, an Igbo man has become president now. But as it is today, to make that argument is not buoyant enough. And these are part of the things Nnamdi Kanu is talking about and the agitation. At some point, it was Ralph Wazirike. That marginalization argument still gains traction. Today is Nnamdi Kanu. Tomorrow, another person can pick it up from that region.
All right.
So let's just all be careful. And President Tinubu, let's see how we can do this politically.
So you're up for a political solution?
It's a political solution.
Well,
since the days of Buhari, they went to meet Buhari. It was Rike Amici and other people went to meet Buhari then. Some Igbo leaders. I don't know why that conversation never sailed through.
All right. I'm sure that we're not going to hear the end of this Nnamdi Kanu protest and the quest and the call for him to be released. And of course, we'll bring the story up on Arise News.
All right, my people, having watched that, I believe you must have grabbed one or two things. And also about the, Aba protests, Biafran protests at Aba to release Nnamdi Kanu. Yes, led by Sowore. Having watched that, I want to give you a kind of clip that, that will take you back a little to watch concerning Edmond Obilo and his usual way of presentation. Thank you.
Hey, are you there? How did Awolowo annoy the North? Remember, I have just talked about Awolowo dragged before the Coca Commission. And before we knew what was going on, Awolowo was dragged to court again for treasonable felony. How did he provoke the North? In 1962, Balewa declared a state of emergency in the Western region. Why? To deal with Awolowo. Because at this time, Awolowo's guys in the Western Region House of Assembly were ready to remove Akintola as the premier. They had the number and they were ready for a vote of no confidence. Knowing that a vote of no confidence was going to remove their ally in the Western region, the federal government declared a state of emergency to ensure that that vote did not take place. Remember, when members of the Western Region House of Assembly were gathered, a commotion took place in that regional House of Assembly that led to the mace of the House of Assembly being used for battle. But that was all that happened, and immediately a state of emergency was declared. That meant that Akintola ceased to be the premier, and a sole administrator was appointed for the Western region in 1962. That was how Dr. Maje Kudumi became the administrator. In recent time, Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared a state of emergency in Rivers State, and Fubara was suspended. So that was what happened in 1962. Akintola was suspended, and Maje Kudumi came in. But before you knew it, Akintola was reinstalled. By this time, Awolowo was heading to prison. So you can see the politics of 1962 keep repeating itself. So Awo said in his book, one of the things that the action group set out to do was to destroy the very basis of this feudal concept. He wanted to destroy Ahmadu Bello's political philosophy, feudalism, leadership of the elite, vassals. They owned the land. His words were laws. And Awolowo had the temerity to go into Saldana's territory in the north, forced him out of his palace to come and campaign, and boldly made the claim that feudalism was not good for the north. And Awo said, one of the things that the action group set out to do was to destroy the very basis of this feudal concept. Did Awolowo draw the first blood? Did he? To every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Was that what happened? Let's read. Awo says, the action group made the point repeatedly that sovereignty over the people was vested in the people themselves, that no one was born to rule, and that only those who were freely elected by the people were entitled to administer their affairs for a prescribed period of time. Take note of these words. That no one was born to rule. Awo at the time had the feeling, the action group had the feeling, that Ahmadu Bello and his ilks felt they were born to rule, and Awolowo was out to challenge them. You know, Awolowo was radical in his perspectives. He was. If you read the lecture he delivered in Gold Coast University, the need for an ideological reappraisal, you will see his ideological reasoning for the development of Africa. He continues, only those who were freely elected by the people were entitled to administer their affairs for a prescribed period of time. These, to the MPC, were forbidden political doctrines. One day, the Saldana, after a series of public meetings and rallies, stopped at a catering rest house to have lunch. He took out his handkerchief, sneezed into it, and found that his nostrils were filled with dust. Not the dust from campaigning. He had to hit the road to campaign. Awolowo says that Ahmadu Bello looked at the handkerchief with obvious dismay, shook his head, and said in a voice that carried the depth of his feeling of utter revulsion and resolution. He says, "I shall never forgive Chief Awolowo for this. I shall never forgive Chief Awolowo for this." Awolowo has quoted what Ahmadu Bello said. And Ahmadu Bello said he will not forgive him. "I shall never forgive Chief Awolowo for this." With the Saldana himself mounting the rostrum to appeal to those he regarded as his own serfs for votes, all the members of the hierarchy, including the then incumbent Prime Minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, lost no time in following his example. We of the Action Group regarded this reaction as a very welcome and salutary augury for democratic practice in Nigeria. However, for the entire feudal hierarchy, all that was too much for them to bear. And they too must have vowed, like the Saldana, never to forgive Awolowo. A report in the Sunday Express of 20th December 1959, at page 2, summed up the attitude of mind of the hierarchy. Here goes the report. So let's look at this report. Awolowo has represented the report in his book, What the North Felt at the Time. Quote, "I shall divide Nigeria into two and hand them over to my lieutenant." Hey, are you there? These are the reasons for the first coup. Awolowo is telling his story in his book. He's quoting the Sunday Express of 20th September 1959, page 2. He's quoting what the North said. And when we say what the North said, we mean what the Saldana Ahmadu Bello said. So let's read the quote. "I shall divide Nigeria into two and hand them over to my lieutenants." Sir Ahmadu Bello contended that MPC's new decision to invade the South politically was a reply to the recent invasion of the North by Southern political parties. So it became tit for tat. If you can come to the North to force me out of my comfort zone, if you can come to the North to stir the people's emotion, I will also come to the Western region and you will see what I will do to you. I will also come to the Eastern region and you will see what I will do to you. So they made incursion into the Western region. Awolowo said that Ahmadu Bello cited a portion in the Quran which says, "You have come to our home, and from now on, we shall be taking the battle to your house." Hey, are you there? Are you there? Reflect with me. Awolowo said that the Saldana cited a portion in the Quran which says, "You have come to our home, from now on, we shall be taking the battle to your house." Awo continues. Sir Ahmadu claimed that, like his great-grandfather, Shehu Otman Danfodio, who, he said, after his conquest, divided the conquered country between his two sons, I too, after conquering the South, we also divide Nigeria into two to be taken charge of by two of my lieutenants. If you don't read books like this, you will not find this kind of secrets. If you don't read books like this, classics, you won't find this kind of secrets. This is Awolowo telling us the story of the First Republic before the coup. Here is Awolowo telling us perhaps this is why they sent him to prison, to deal with him, so that the Southerner will take over the South, starting from the Western region. And the military guys were watching. Sir Ahmadu Bello claimed that, like his great-grandfather, Shehu Ottoman Danfodio, who he said, after his conquest, divided the conquered country between his two sons. I, too, after conquering the South, we also divide Nigeria into two to be taken charge of by two of my lieutenants. He said the South had already been handed over to Alhaji Abubakar, the Prime Minister, and added that before his resignation from politics, he would appoint another lieutenant to take over the administration of the North. He presented a cloak of authority to Balewa. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I just read from page 1, 2 to 3 of the book, The Travails of Democracy and the Rule of Law. This is the original print of the book, not the reprint. Now, this book was published in 1987. That was the year Awolowo died. He was supposed to release Adventures in Power Book 3. So we don't have Adventures in Power Book 3, because he released this one before he died. And this is the 1987 edition. The print is the original print. It is clear, it cannot be compared to the reprint. This is the quality print. And if you want this quality print, you can get this book on udarabooks.com. It is one of the primary texts of this program. Why We Struck is a primary text, and we have added this to the primary text of the show. So we'll be reading from this book, and there's another primary text I will introduce to you.
All right, viewers, we are going to call it a day until I come your way next time. I am still Chinedu, your presenter. I say bye for now.